You are now listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Podcast.
Welcome to Ride With Me, episode 96. Today is April 15, 2023, and today's guest is my new friend, Antonio. Antonio, good afternoon.
Hey, man, thank you for having me on. Afternoon to you, too.
Well, it's still morning on my end. We got 3 more minutes, but it's afternoon. It's afternoon where you are.
3 hours away?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I don't know. I thought you was 2.
Nah, when you said 2 o'clock your time, that meant 11 o'clock my time.
Oh, well, good morning.
Yeah, so I got 3 more minutes, boss. But today's guest is again Antonio. I met him through Marlena through TikTok. Marlena was on my podcast recently. She's been on his podcast a couple times. Podcast name is PTG.TV. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, mainly Spotify, right?
No, it's everywhere. It's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on iHeartRadio. Yeah, wherever you get your streaming from. I haven't got to what is it called? Because I want to get on there. I can't even think of it right now. But yeah, I'm everywhere. Yeah,
same. I mean, same thing here. We use the same platform to post our podcast. I was recently on his podcast, sharing the purpose of my podcast, and now he's on mine to share the purpose for his podcast.
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's so. I guess you want me to tell my story, like how I got started in it?
Yeah, the purpose of your podcast. So what is it?
So the purpose of PTG TV is to educate people on politics, technology, and gaming. The reason of it is to break down all of those subjects in a way for everybody to understand, to give them that aha moment to where they can capture it without me going to any big technical details or legal jargon that they typically hear from anybody else that talks over the top of their head. It just, like I said, just to break it down in a way that they can digest it.
Right. And I mean, for my episode was pretty much, my guest appearance on your podcast was pretty much giving my life story on why I do and why I have people come on my podcast and share their stories and pretty much get shit off their chest. And right. And I just was recently, told thank you, for what you're doing. And I never thought about it that way. I thought about it as I'm just getting shit off my chest, but now allowing people to come on and share their stories and get shit off their chest, like people that have not said things out loud ever to say it on the podcast. It's like, like thank you, So, but
I think a lot of people are doing it now, which is kind of weird to me because because you have a lot of people now getting on podcasts, and that's where all the tea is being spilled, stuff they've held on for years, which I kind of find it weird. I guess it's in a way, it's people's, their way of like having a form of therapy without actually seeing a therapist. But I mean, I think it's good. Sometimes I think it's bad because sometimes you might be sharing too much. But but in our cases, it's good.
Oh, I've had family members not talk to me anymore, but AKA my mom. But it's stuff that we don't get off our chest and stuff, and if you just hold it in, you have all this anger and all this BS, and you don't know why. And sometimes is all you got to do is get it off your chest. And a lot of people, when we were kids, you bring up, oh, I'm freaking stressed out, or I'm this, or it's like I have an example. There's a individual that I know that, they tell, they're living in a toxic environment, and it's like one tells the other person, you need therapy. Well, no, you need it more than I do. No, if I take therapy, that's fine, but don't tell nobody I'm taking therapy because it's embarrassing. Therapy is not embarrassing, man.
No, therapy is a good thing because I have a therapist. I mean, I've been through a lot of stuff in my own personal life. I mean, I was talking about it yesterday with somebody I had on my own show, and it's like, you need to get it off your chest. You need to go see a therapist because, I mean, you can talk. It's only so much you can share to a friend to have them relate to some of the stuff that you're going to. And then even that, you don't want to put the burden of having so much pressure put onto them of all the stuff that you've gone through to where now they have to find somebody else to release it off of them. So it's good to go see somebody that's licensed, somebody that's trained to deal with all that kind of stuff, and somebody that can actually coach you and guide you through the things that you've gone through in your own personal life, or you might still be facing right now.
And I'm hoping that if people that have come on my podcast to get stuff off their chest, I'm hoping that my podcast kind of opens the door for them to be like, dude, that one episode with Andy was feeling, it felt good getting shit off my chest. Maybe I should consider finding a therapist and talking to a therapist. I mean, I hope that's the case, man. I just podcasts. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing it. It's funny because I have a cousin that he was like, you know what, man? I was talking about a podcast with a buddy of mine 10 years ago, telling him we should, like, when podcasts first started kind of coming around, dude, we should consider doing a podcast. And now podcasts are everywhere. It's funny because you hear, you do hear a lot on radio or whatever. You know, there's podcasts for everything, podcasts for this, podcasts for that. And right. I just started mine, like I said, just to get shit off my chest, and you know, kind of like opened to pretty much the purpose was to get shit off my chest, to tell other people that are listening, like, holy shit, do you know the saying, someone always has it worse than you do? You know, it's like I may have similarity with an individual, right? Let's say an individual has a similar BS that I'm going through, that I went through, but there's no stories that are the same. This person might think life's hell, like I thought life was hell, but he might have a loving family, and I didn't, you know. He might have a mom to run to and talk to and be able to vent to. I didn't. So that's my example of someone always has it worse than you.
I kind of see it different. I think it's just a matter of perspective, because I think all of us ways our circumstances sometimes be greater than others. And I think really it just boils down to that, you know, kind of like I was saying before we even started on it, we're all facing, a lot of us are facing some struggle. Some of the similar struggles, some of them might be different than others, but it's still, you know, how you take it versus how somebody else take it. Because somebody might be going through something and they're okay. I mean, they're still walking around happy and fine because they have this belief upon themselves that, which is a good thing, that no matter what, at the end of the day, everything's going to be okay. As long as I keep pushing through, you know, I should be fine. Because you can say, well, I just use a war situation. Well, I'm in a war and, you know, my family members being killed, and somebody else over here where I'm homeless, and, you know, like you just say, I don't have anybody to turn to. And yeah, you can, I guess morally you can say, okay, well, that might be true, and that, you know, at least I'm not, you know, having to dodge bombs or whatever, but still that person that's going through homelessness might feel as though that, you know, they don't have a way out. And to them, going through the struggle they're going through is like living in a war zone, because, you know, we have so many people opposed to being homeless, and you can't even set up a camp anywhere because they're trying to tear those down. So like I said, it's just, to me, it's a matter of perspective. I never look at it as a way that the stuff that I've gone through, that it was far worse than anybody else's. I just know it was hard as hell for me.
Right. I was having a conversation yesterday with my brother-in-law. My everybody on the podcast that listens knows my brother-in-law Ricky. He's an LAPD officer, and we were talking. We try to not get stuff off our chest, but just kind of compare stories of what's been going on, you know, in the day-to-day life, you know. Mm-hmm. And I brought up an example about an individual, and I said, you know, when this person hits rock bottom, the thing is that everyone's going to be there to wipe his ass. What they need to do is they need to let him struggle on his own. And he used the same example you did, kind of in a way, was like, what, that doesn't work for everybody. And just because, you know, because I use that as an example because that worked for me. You know, I hit rock bottom and I had nobody there to wipe my ass for me, you know. Right. And in this case, this individual has people that'll be there to once he hits rock bottom, they will wipe his ass for him. But he used, you know, not everybody has, pretty much, I'm comparing what happened to me that as an example that it needs to happen to some other people so they can open their eyes, which I'm sure I was completely wrong, but I'm just going based on personal experiences.
Yeah, and so what we've all kind of been trained to do, which I guess in a way, everybody's different, but we compare each other. We do our own means test. So our means test is to look at what we've overcome, because you hear a lot of motivational speakers, is whatever I overcome, if I overcame it, you should be able to overcome it too. And it's like, no, not everybody's built the same way. Some people go through that struggle, and if they don't have a support system, they decide they just want to check out, and they'll and I say check out in the cleanest way possible because I don't want his podcast getting flagged for anything. But I said they check out and they leave this world to go over to the next because they can't handle the stress and struggles that a lot of other people can go through. I mean, because we see it when it comes to a different sub communities, like a lot of our communities, especially us. And I hate to say it this way, but in certain like minority communities, because I mean, I consider you be a minority too. Is kind of we've kind of gone through struggle coming up, and we had to deal with a lot of adversity and stuff. And those that have not gone through that, let's say come from a privileged household, and I say privilege as where they have a lot of income and money coming in. So let's say that money just happens to one day just be taken away, or they lose it because the market fails or whatever. They don't know what it means to go through not being able to put food on the table and or provide food for themselves. And to them, you know, they can't handle that pressure, and they check out. Either they commit a crime to hurt themselves, or I have plenty of examples of that, but they just can't handle that pressure.
It's funny, there's a trip we were talking about. I was reading about this actor. He committed suicide back in 2003, and this is an actor that I liked him in the movie Hicks with Chuck Norris, where he has like daydreams of kicking people's asses with Chuck Norris. You know, like Chuck Norris is his right hand man. And I was reading his story because, you know, it's all over Facebook. Oh, you know, he killed himself. It's the anniversary of his birthday. And so I looked it up to read about him. Funny coincidence, just out of nowhere. And yeah, Jonathan Brandis, his last movie was in 2002 with, I believe, what's his name? Bruce Willis. And he felt that his performance wasn't all that great. And that's why he killed himself. Yeah. After that movie came out, he became depressed and alcoholic, and then he hung himself. And it's like, damn. So everyone kind of goes through a different path and a different, you know, like, it's still to this day, it's hard to believe that Robin Williams did the same thing to himself.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that because you would think that he was one of the happiest men you could be around. I mean, everybody that's met him, from artists that's worked with him before, actors and actresses, and people that have met him on the street, was like, this guy's the most jovial dude that you can come across. He's real genuine. He seems happy, but he was battling demons on the inside that he didn't know how to deal with, and you know, he decided to take himself out.
Yeah, it's a trip how you hear. I you know what? It sucks because I had a conversation with my son about a year ago, and it was about, you know, suicide. And I told him, you know, he knows that I try to kill myself, and you know, and I've told him multiple times, they saved my life. My kids are the ones that saved my life. And so I told him, I'm like, I don't ever want you to feel that you don't have someone to come talk to, because I never want to hear, you know, you being depressed. Mijo, straight out, mijo, a girl's going to break your heart, buddy. Yeah. You know, a girl's going to break your heart, man, but that's not worth killing yourself for. I mean, look, for example, I almost did it for your mom, you know, and I'm still here, right? But what happened? I found someone, you know, in your eyes, you know, in my eyes, better for me. And he was like, yeah, Dad, so I don't ever, if you ever get a broken heart, mijo, doesn't mean that, you know, that was it. That's the end of the world. No way, buddy. You're going to get your heart broken multiple times. I just want you to know that I'm here for you to talk to. I don't want you to feel alone where you have, you know, no one in this world. Because I felt, walking through the streets of Oxnard, I felt alone. I felt I had no one to go to. And in his case, he has a support system here. He's got aunts and uncles and grandmas and, you know, grandpa that they all love him. And I told him, if you don't want to come talk to me, you have your Nina who's an LAPD. You go talk to her. You have Ricky who's LAPD. Go talk to him. You know, you have multiple people here in this family to talk to. And some of these people feel like they don't. I mean, again, back to Robin Williams, who would have known that a man that got paid to make others laugh was depressed?
Yeah, I because I tell my boys the same thing too, that the door is always open. But I guess in everybody, it's a little different because, I mean, like, even you're talking about your son, you may tell him he has all those people, but like the example you gave earlier with the police officer, he could be going through something, but he could not want to come to you all because he's going to feel like if he tell you, he's probably let you down because of a situation that's come up.
Right.
And so in that case, I don't even know what the answer is to that. It's no different than what you're telling me. Like, the door is always open no matter what the conversation is. Feel free to come and talk to me. Because my youngest son has gone through depression when the pandemic hit. And he's kind of built the same way I am, to a degree that we're both introverts. Well, I'm introvert, extrovert now, but beforehand, I was a true introvert. And even though he was in band, he was in band. He played, was in all these classes and these extracurricular things. He still kind of kept to himself and like a handful of people, but he never had real friends like my oldest son does, who's outgoing. He's an extrovert. He's always talking to people. He does crowd surfing, which is pretty funny to me, but he didn't get it from me, it's from his mama. But yeah, once the pandemic hit and he wasn't getting that energy from the other kids around him, whether he was talking to him or not, he started going through a state of depression. And fortunate enough for us, he told his mom, and then his mom told me, and then we signed him up for a therapist, and he was able to go to a therapist, and he was perfectly fine. But yeah, it's just whether he talks to you or not, just make it. Well, anybody say the case, not even just Andy. Just tell your kid to feel comfortable, tell you that they don't feel right, and that way you can get them over to somebody that's trained. Because 9 times out of 10, they're more than likely not going to go and talk to a family member, because either they're going to feel like they're letting somebody down, or they don't want to be that vulnerable where they tell them something so personal about their life, they feel like they're going to judge them. But at least give them that outlet to say, hey, let me know what's going on so I can at least get you signed up and put under somebody that's a third party that don't know anything about you or me, and that you can just go talk to, because I want to see you here, and I don't want you to do anything to harm yourself potentially or harm anybody else.
Exactly. But let's get to know Antonio, man. Like, what makes you, man? I know we talked in the past. We talked a little bit. You gave me a little bit of your past history, your growing up. But let's tell my listeners what makes Antonio.
So I still come from that nuclear family, 2-parent household. Like, I come from the deep South. So, those that haven't listened to the podcast before don't even know me, because you don't know me. But I come from Macon, Georgia. I mean, I don't mind putting all my business out there. I come from Macon, Georgia, which is in the deep south of Georgia, south from hour and a half, 2 hours outside of Atlanta, right before you get to Warner Robins, or 2 hours away, 3 hours away from Valdosta. Anyway, I come from the deep south. So, and I say that to say, because coming from the south, we, in my age, so I'm 44, we grew up around community. So technically speaking, we should have always had somebody we could talk to if we had any situation that comes up. But my parents moved myself and my siblings up from Macon when I was like 10, for better opportunities and jobs, because my father worked for the phone company. So they gave me an opportunity to come up to Atlanta to, get a better new job and more money. So we moved up to Atlanta. But in the midst of all that, I'm the middle child of 3. So one thing I was telling one of the people that was on my show the other day is, like, the middle children, to me, in my opinion, and always in my opinion, is just, they have the hardest. Because if you have 3, if you end up having 3 children, even if you have 4, the first child is always your trial and error child, because you knew the parents and you don't know anything about what it is to be a parent. So you try stuff out on your first child. The second child you think is going to be the last child until you have a third one. But once you have a third one, the third one ends up being spoiled, because it's probably the last one, the third or fourth, and they're the last one that you're going to have, which means you have that one kid in the middle. You still working on the first one, you spoiling the third one, but the kid in the middle you don't know what the hell is going on with. So they're left with the burden of trying to navigate through life, don't know what path they want to be on, because they don't have anybody to guide them, because so much energy is put towards the oldest and the youngest.
Yeah, my son Nick, he's a 15. He sometimes feels like he has like the middle child syndrome, and then you have my son Julian, who's technically the baby, 14 years old, and he's like he actually told my wife one day that he didn't want my wife to have a baby, because my wife's not their biological mother. So he told my wife he didn't want her to have a baby, and she's like, why? And he's like, because that means I wouldn't be the baby anymore.
Right. They're spoiled, man. My sister was spoiled. I mean, hell, she's still spoiled to this day, and she's in her. Yeah, she'll be turning 40. So yeah, she's still spoiled. And my parents are old, and they still spoil the hell out of her. So for me, it's like I grew up in life, and I'm short. I'm only 5'6", and at the time I was kind of chunky too. And so I got picked on a lot. I got bullied. I never really found myself because I didn't, I always judged myself thinking I always compared myself to other people that was around me. No different than the kids of today looking at social media. You compare yourself to people on social media. Well, I did it looking at my older brother who was in the sports, because my older brother played football. He was very popular. My youngest sister she's gorgeous, and she was in pageant shows. She could sing. She could do everything right. So me I was I was a nerd, but I wasn't too much of a nerd because my grades weren't there because I had ADHD, which my parents know nothing about. Even to this day, they don't know anything about. And parents, please get your kids looked at. If they're not functioning well in school, don't just think it's just they're being lazy. They could have a condition. You just need to sit down and talk to them because you just don't know. Because to think that a kid is doing bad just because they want to do bad, no, it could be they could be dyslexic. They could have attention deficit disorder, ADD. So they could have something going on. I had it going on, and my parents didn't know that about me because I didn't realize I had it until I got diagnosed with when I was in college. So growing up as a child, like I said, I got bullied. I got picked on a lot. I was a little heavy set being short, so I'm like a little oompa loompa. And it was terrible. I mean, for me, it was terrible because I never, and even if people said they liked me, I didn't believe them because I was critical of myself. And it wasn't until I got to, I'm gonna fast forward, high school, where I ended up catching Crohn's disease, and I almost died from that because I was bleeding out internally. And I had no idea I was bleeding out internally until I had appendicitis. So when my appendix literally did burst. So my appendix, it burst on the operating table. Once they got inside of me, they saw that I had ulcers and stuff in my colon, so they had diagnosed me with Crohn's disease. So I was out of school for about almost a year trying to get healed up from that. So I was homeschooled a lot. And I said that I changed up because once I came back into school, like all the friends I had weren't my friends anymore. They had all moved on. So I was by myself. And so when I got out of school, I kind of went sideways because I got bullied on. So I got into boxing classes. I started doing mixed martial arts and fighting and stuff. And so that boosted my confidence a little bit. So from my late teens, my 18 all the way up until 24, I was on a high. Because I'm fighting, I'm in phenomenal shape. I'm working out 4 hours a day, going through school, done with school, got in corporate America, doing well in corporate America. I'm climbing the corporate chain. And then I end up finding my first wife through one of our hair salons. So somebody referred me to this stylist because I was pretty Ricky. So I was going to this stylist first thing in the morning, and he was putting an S curl in my. This dude was great. So I wish I could find a barber like that now. Like he would wash my hair, style my hair, cut my hair, line me up, and then get me cleaned up and send me off to work. Perfect. I've not met a barber or a stylist like that to this freaking day. And I would love to have one now. But to go into like the struggles I was going through alone after that is, I'm going to fast forward through that because I had my first son, which was the greatest day of my life, having my first son. It felt great to be a father because I do love that a lot because I wanted to have a kid because I wanted to do something with my children differently than how I was raised coming up. Because even though I come from a two-parent household, it was still tough on me because my parents weren't taught, I guess, the right way of how to parent. Because all of us come from a background of, you got the father that goes off to work, he earns the money. The mother typically stays at home. Even if she does work, she's the one kind of governing the kids and being like the project manager. She handles everything at the house and making sure the kids are okay. And then when the father gets home, he makes sure he has a meal on the table and he don't really spend any time with the kids. Now, my dad did teach us a lot of stuff, but as far as that like bonding time between parents and the kids, we didn't have any of that. Like we didn't do a whole bunch of parks and stuff. Like we weren't going outside playing catch or doing like kickball. It was always us hanging out with our cousins. That was pretty much it.
It's funny you bring up the bonding. I dropped off my boys with their biological mother yesterday, and she I guess she reconciled with her ex, and my boys were very happy to see her ex, right? And they ran to her, they gave her a hug, and then she was talking to me. She said, "Oh my God, the little one stretched out so much." And we started talking about wrestling, and we went to WrestleMania, and you can when Julian and myself start talking to this individual about wrestling, apparently my Nick, the oldest, made like a side eye, pretty much showed a little. It seemed like a little jealousy, right? So the mother of my kids pulled me to the side after. And she's like, "Do you bond more with Julian than you do with Nick?" The thing is that do more things with Julian that that he'll get into. Like, for example, I was watching The Young Rock on TV, and Julian was like, "Dad, did that really happen?" I'm like, "Yeah, mijo, I watched it live. I watched it. You go to school and you talk about Fortnite with your friends. This is what we used to go to school and talk about, was the WWF." Right. And so she was like, "What do you?" So we bond on that. He started watching wrestling with me. He'll sit on the couch with me. He'll sit next to me, and he'll want me to hold him. Like, that's our cuddle time. Nick is more of a on his phone all the time. He's 15 years old. The only thing that I can get him to do will probably be if it involves Taylor Swift. Dad. If I had Taylor Swift tickets, trust me, he'll go to Taylor Swift with me. The one thing that Nick and I do bond on over is photography, and we'll take, we went to Big Bear a few months ago, and him and I were out till like 11 o'clock at night trying to take pictures of the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, in which he got a really good picture, and we do that. But I think Julian, there's a lot of things that he can get hooked on and to do with that. We played catch. Like I said, we watch wrestling. There's a TV show that I'm hooked on. He'll sit there with me and watch it. He'll start liking it. So it's that age gap, and that's why I told her, man, it's the age gap. He's on his phone most of the time. So yeah, this one who he has his phone but doesn't play on it as much, will sit there and watch wrestling with me. So it's just funny that you brought up bonding with your kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's so how I look at the kids. So the kids pick up traits from like both the parents, and some of them gravitate more towards what you like versus what the other parent likes. Like, even in my situation, like I have my two boys. And technically, I would get to the story. I had three, but I have my two boys. It's like actually here now. My third one passed away, but my youngest relates more with me because, like I said, we got the same personality. So I like watching animes. He loved watching animes and reading manga. He's a graphic artist. I used to draw, and I was an artist myself before I got into technology. And then, so we like sci-fi stuff, but we can sit down and talk and nerd out about science and stuff, or animes that's coming out. And then my oldest, he's into, he plays a lot of games. Like he play a ton of video games that I don't play. Like, we used to play some of the same games together, but he's into like the Fortnites and the 1v1s and stuff like that. I don't get into that. So I try to bond with him in that aspect of playing games. Now, when it comes to like being outside, when they were growing up, like we were everywhere growing up. Like, we liked adventure stuff. So we would go outside and we would do like the zip lining, like rock climbing, all kind of stuff. We would do all that. But since he's gotten older, my oldest is kind of similar to, yours is on his phone. So he would be sitting down texting people, or he's wanting to get on the computer. Like when he's out here with me in Georgia, he wants to get, because my oldest is going to Michigan State, so he's in Michigan. So when he's down here in Georgia, he wants to get on my computer so he can get online and play with his friends and stuff. So he does bond well with his mom, because his mom, my ex, she's in Michigan too. So he'll drive down from Michigan State and go have lunch with her and spend time with her. Whereas my youngest son, we relate more because we sit down and we nerd out about a lot of technology and science and how we can adapt that. But still, at the end of the day, he's never expressed that, he feels somebody gets treated a little differently, because I try to give them like the same equal amount of love. Now, I guess in my situation, my youngest lives down here because he goes to school down here. Right. So I see him more than I see my oldest, but I still try to reach out and connect with him at least once a week or once. And I am that parent. I don't bug my kids in school. I'm not. I don't. I know their mom does it, and that's their mom, because that's what moms do. They check up on them at least once or twice a day, or once every 2 or 3 days. I'm like, y'all grown now. I'm not bothering you no life. If I'm starting to miss you, I'm gonna pick up the phone and call you and text you. If you respond back after 2 days, if I hadn't heard from you, then I'm gonna start harassing you and blowing your phone up and start trying to hunt you down. Whereas my youngest, because he's down here, I'm like, hey man, let's go grab something to eat on a weekend or something. I'll go down and pick him up from school, and then we go grab something to eat.
And that's what I told the mother of my kids as well. It's like, I mean, no offense, but because obviously, not a mother doesn't want to hear that the kids are attached to an individual who's not blood. You know, and I'm like, no offense, but yes, Nick is more closer to my wife, and dude, we were in my car yesterday, and my wife connected her phone to my car, and we're going coming home, and the car is full blast, loud at max, Taylor Swift music, man. And it's like,
some of Tay-Tay's new songs are good.
it's like, to me, I'm like kind of like driving, and I'm like freaking looking annoyed as fuck. It's like, it's not even like I have 2 little girls in the back seat, bro. I got 2 teenage boys.
Yeah.
But that's what I told her. That's what I told her. I'm like, I'm sorry, you know, not to hurt your feelings or anything, but yes, he's more attached to my wife, and they bond more. You know, when it comes down to visiting grandma, the boys fight of who's going to sit next to grandma. And I'm sorry that they don't have that relationship with your mom. Hey, they don't have that relationship with my mom. They have the relationship with an individual who's not even blood. And if this lady's going to go open a CD and put money in the bank for the boys, dude, they're in a family that loves them. And I want you to stop hating on them so much and understand that these people mean well. And, you know, she didn't argue. Usually she's like, fuck you, Andy. And no, not. She sees it, man. Like, you know, the kids we get there, they're like, Dad, do we have to stay? I'm like, I drove all the way to Valencia, bro. You're staying.
You're going to stay, yeah. Yeah, I tell my boys that because they're not that close to their grandmother because my mom is my mom. And when they were growing up, she was she wouldn't see them that often. I ain't gonna beat her down too bad because I mean she was a terrible grandmother, and she acknowledges that now too, to a degree. She does, but I still have that thing about me being from the South. I'm like, you still need to talk to your grandmother. I'm like, because no matter what she did to me or how she treated y'all growing up, you still need to have that relationship. I'm like, I'm not saying you got to go every weekend, but you still need to have a relationship.
I did that with my mom, bro. I still took my kids over there to visit her. And no matter what she did to me, I still took the kids over there to visit her. It was up until the boys were like, do we have to call her grandma? Like an event changed their mentality about going to visit my mom.
Right.
I put my hands up, bro. And I looked up in the sky and said, hey, I tried. So
I still enforce it because I tell them all the time. I mean, because they don't remember. I tell them all the time, like, make sure you call your grandmother the birthday. It's Mother's Day. Make sure you call your grandmother Mother's Day. Now, they may remember, and I'm just telling them, but I still do put it in their head. Because I'm like, you still, I guess that's still that Southerner in me. You still got to kind of respect your elders. I'm not going to force them to do like we had to do. Like, you got to spend the whole weekend or week down there with her. Because I love my grandmother to death, and I get sad sometimes even thinking about my grandmother. But reason I didn't, my grandmother did watch out for us, but her house was hot as hell. I don't know y'all coming from those from the South, or even any place where it was like the older houses. They only had one air conditioner, and the older generation they like living in hell in the house. And I'm like, I don't like that. I enjoy some cold air. I like heat outside. I enjoy heat outside, but when I come inside, I need a state of relief when I come inside so I can cool down.
Right.
But yeah, I still make them call their grandmother because I'm like, you still need to call both your grandparents because they're grandfather too. Because I mean, he made me who I was. Like he got me into technology and stuff. So and he enjoys those nerd talks because when we get around, that's what we talk about. We talk about nerd stuff. We talk about technology. We talk about aliens. I mean, we talk about everything.
That's cool. So what? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask. So what you said?
So what kind of triggered me down, like get into where I'm at today, and the circumstances I went through. So I was in corporate America. I was climbing a corporate chain, and I found out that being young, I mean, I've always learned from other people and other things that took place around me that I was spending so much time trying to focus on like my future and getting ahead that I wasn't spending enough time with my family at home. So are you talking about I'm doing 14-hour, 15-hour days in the office because I was on the executive staff. So I'm trying to impress all the higher ups so I can get, up into another position. And around the time, both of my boys, they was here, but I would come home and then I would be so exhausted that I wasn't hardly doing anything when I got home until my wife at the time, she told me about that. And I I'm one of those people that I do learn from my mistakes. So when I'm caught out on something, I do a self-analysis, and if it's legitimately true, then I'm like, okay, you're right. I need to adjust that. So I adjusted that, and shortly around the same time frame, it was when she was pregnant with my the third child. So I would come home from work. I still would be in work early, but I'll probably get home around 6 o'clock in the evening, So get home, play with my boys for a little bit, get some father time with them. You know, we play around, throw a ball around, and then get them ready for bed. And while she cooks dinner, I'm reading to them and whatnot, doing the parental thing. And then we take turns. We split it up. We split duties up. One would grab one, the other one grab the other one. I'll bathe them, and she'll lotion up and lather up one of them, and I'll lather up the other one. And then I'm the one that's putting the youngest, because at the time he was still on the bottle, get him ready for bed while she got the other one ready for bed. But then it was it? Because his birthday's coming up too. It was 2005. Yeah, I think it was 2005. She gave birth to my youngest son, and he came out with a couple of conditions. Like he had his left testicle didn't drop. So y'all that don't know about about anatomy, babies, especially boys, before they're born, their testicles are up inside of them, like in their lower abdomen. And before, as they start to develop, it drops down into, your testicle sac. Well, in some situations, one of them or two of them, they don't drop all the way down. So you have to go through some surgery to get it to drop down. So he had to go through surgery. And then he is still having like issues to where he was puking up. I'm not even going to go into too detail because it's kind of disgusting, but he was puking up a lot outside of the norm. And the puke wasn't the same. It wasn't the color of like the milk that he was drinking. And so we kept taking him to the doctor's office, and we was like, something is not right. Because I'm like, he's not gaining that much weight. Something is not right. So we end up finding out he had a blockage in his lower intestine. So when you have now adults have that, but when you have that, most kids don't survive, because what it means is as you digest food, the food has nowhere to go because it's blocked. So once it comes back up into your stomach. And so from there, because it can't sit in your stomach, and you're talking about it's technically bowel, now it has to come out one way, which is going to be the mouth. So it ended up happening to him. So I was rushing up. I'm the one that's watching out, making sure everybody at home was okay, because again, it's the mom and it's her child, making sure that she's okay, making sure my two boys are okay, because they're babies. They don't even know what the hell is going on. And then I'm rushing him to the doctor's pediatrician and then to the hospital. And I'm telling you right now, that's the hardest thing that I don't wish on any parent whatsoever. None whatsoever. And it's tough for me to even think about. But you're talking about having your kid plugged up into machines. He's still a baby, like he's a newborn. Them having to put needles. They can't find a vein in his arm because he's so young. So they got to they got to shave his head, put veins, run needles and stuff into his head to catch a vein in his head.
Oh my God.
And it was terrible. It was terrible. So fortunately enough, that we went through the surgery and he came out of it and he started gaining weight. Like he started gaining weight like any traditional kid, regular kid would. And he was laughing and playing. And, we had a good time for like a good 5.5 months. And then shortly after that, I was in the office one day. Woke up that morning because I was the one, I was done dirty. So I would get up. So she wouldn't have to get up in the middle of the night. So when he got up and he was, wanting something to eat, I would get up and go and feed either one of them. So I fed him that morning, put him back down to sleep, then went off to work. And it wasn't even 3 hours later, she had got up and fed him again. Well, because now everybody's up in the house. She fed him again, got the other two downstairs. They were, downstairs eating. And she came back up to check on him, and he was gone.
No shit.
So I got a phone call at work that she was screaming and hollering. My neighbor called me, and I heard in the background screaming and hollering. I was like, what the hell is going on? And she had told me, my neighbor told me that I just need to hurry up and get home. So I got home and, I found my kid in the bed. So from that point on, it was like a downward spiral, because she didn't know how to, which I don't, no mother would know how to deal with that. Your child dying, especially when you see your child, his body in the bed. I had 3 boys, his body in the bed. And then she's taking the blame on her and he passed away from SIDS. So those that don't know, SIDS is sudden infant death syndrome. And so she's thinking that maybe she laid him down the wrong way and he just ended up suffocating, and in most cases with sudden infant death syndrome, it's just the kid didn't have enough strength or whatever to pull their neck up. So they end up smothering themselves to death. And so that's what happened with him. He just died by asphyxiation because he just didn't have the strength to hold his head up, which was weird because I had laid him down that morning and he was perfectly fine. So, yeah, I think the divorce came from she didn't know how to deal with that internally, so it ended up affecting both of us. And me, I didn't get a chance to grieve because as being a man, I got to make sure that everybody in the household is perfectly fine. and making sure my two youngest boys are okay, because they're toddlers. They don't know what the hell is going on. They don't know why their mom is so upset, and they don't understand why we're upset. They don't even understand why we're going to funerals and stuff. They don't. I mean, because they're toddlers. They to this day don't even remember it. And so we that affected our household, and then I ended up having a situation at work to where I had to leave my job. And so from leaving my job, and then I had my own business going, it led into the recession of 2007, 2008. If anybody remembers that.
2008, dude. I lost my job. It didn't work for 2.5 years.
Yeah, same here. So couldn't get back into corporate America. The business I had failed because we going through a recession. Nobody had any extra money to spend. And so we were staying with my parents. And staying with my parents, she finally confessed to me that, you know, she wanted to leave because she just had fallen out of love. And I guess all the pain that she had to deal with my youngest son, she just couldn't handle it no more. So she left and took the boys and went to Michigan. And I was here by myself. Now, my mom, because it wasn't my dad, my mom was like, she thought it was me, that the reason we was getting divorced, it was because she thought I wanted to get out and run the streets. And I'm like, if... Those people that know me, I just told y'all early on, I'm an introvert. Introverted people don't run the streets. We stay at home and we mind our business. And
right.
either we're in a book, we're on a computer, or we just tend our own business to ourselves.
Or we do a podcast.
Or we do podcasts. We're not club people.
Nope.
We're not hanging out in bars.
Nope.
We're not doing any. But my mom swore to God that's what it was. And she was like, if they leave, I gotta go. And I got kicked out.
Wow.
And so I left my mom's house, and it was by the grace of God that I ended up getting a job at this like GameStop, and me and the manager ended up becoming cool. And so he invited me to stay with him. And so, but he lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. So he gave me room on his floor. So I slept on his floor. But during that time frame of all that, that's when I was like, I need to check out. Like I was sitting on a bench on a playground from where my parents lived at. And I was just sitting on the swing, and I was just like, man, how did I get here? I was like, I was climbing the corporate ladder.
That reminds me of a song from, what's it called? Watching the Children Play.
It was rough, because it's like, if you looked at my life before all that happened, I was living the high life. I had a 3,600 square foot house. We had a big media room that the kids played in, and we had a big TV and stuff in there, that huge surround sound systems everywhere. So we would, hang out, and we have barbecues and stuff every weekend with all the neighbors in the community. And to see me from there, my wife driving a car that she wanted to drive, I couldn't get what I wanted to get, because college and credit scores be messing everybody up. But still, I was still driving a newer car. But we was doing great. I mean, we had the nuclear household, big house, big yard.
American dream.
Yeah, American dream. To see me from there all the way down to where I'm homeless now, and then going through a divorce, and I had a kid I had put in the grave. Man, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. And the only thing that turned me around was I always thought about, if I leave here, I'm gonna watch out for my boys. And they were still toddlers, so I was like, I think it was only like 3 and 4, or 4 and 5. I don't even know. No, 3 and 4. So I was like, who gonna watch out for my boys? So if I check out now, what's going to happen with them? And I always had something about myself when I had boys. I was like, I would refuse to raise sorry men. Like we had enough sorry men in this world. And I was like, no matter what I do, I'm going to make sure that these boys grow up to be outstanding men. And I'm like, I'm going to teach them the old Southern way, and I'm going to teach them the new way, that, you can be great in life without having no burdens, no problems from anybody else coming upon you to bring you down. And that was the only thing that saved me from checking out, because I was right there on the verge of, similar to you, just ending it all.
Right.
So it took 2 years of laying on somebody's floor. And when I tell you that's hard, like people say, oh, well, at least you went outside in the environment. I don't wish any of it on nobody, because I was sleeping on his floor. So, he still want to have company and hang out. So I couldn't go to sleep until he got done partying with his friends and stuff. And then, he got girls coming over. So I, again, cannot go to sleep until, he get done.
Until the sound effects are over.
Yeah. So, and then because I didn't have anything, I had to walk to work. So I was walking to work in pouring down rain sometimes, or here in Georgia, don't snow often, but walking to work in snow and ice and stuff. and I'm having to pack a change of clothes. So it was a horrible time. Like, just want to say, I don't wish homelessness on anybody. So when people tell me they're like, when I was running for office, and I had to deal with people that was going through the kind of stuff, like, you know, my heart kind of went out for them because I know what that means, especially those that living out in the environment. So fast forward, after 2 years, I ended up getting another job back into corporate America. And so from that point on, I just kept working myself back up, and things just kept gradually, you know, turning around. And I got to a place, I think it was my first run, was it 6 years ago? 5 years ago. After I had overcome all the troubles I went through, I'm back in corporate. I'm doing great in corporate. And at this time, I'm dating. I'm not married again. I'm dating. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking around. I'm still in the same community I grew up in. Like, all this stuff happened in the same community I grew up in, which is crazy to me. Because we left from Macon and went to Stone Mountain. From Stone Mountain, I moved out to Norcross, Georgia. But from Norcross, Georgia, when I bought my first house, back out in Stone Mountain so my kids could be close to their grandparents. So all of this stuff happened in the same place that I grew up from when I was 10 years old. So I end up, I lost my train of thought. So working my way up, looking back in that same area of where I grew up at, and I'm seeing the conditions that everybody's living in, and it's actually going downhill. I'm like, these same politicians, this is when we run for office, the same politicians that were in office, that's been in office for all this time, but yeah, I'm seeing my community and people going through stuff that I would just overcame and still going through it now. I'm seeing more homelessness I've never seen in my neighborhoods before, because we never had homelessness like that out in the suburban areas. I'm seeing businesses putting bars and stuff up on their windows because crime is getting rampant. And I was just like, you know what? It's time for a change. So I ran for office. I ran for Congress out of my area because my congressman, he was a commissioner out there. He was sorry as hell as a commissioner because he and I got into arguments. I cussed him out as a commissioner. And so when he got promoted to, when they were campaigning for him to be a congressman, I'm like, I wouldn't support this man a day in my life. I'm like, I'd rather support a dog running for office than support him. But he got in. So I wanted to challenge him because I was like, he was a terrible commissioner and he's a terrible congressman. So I challenged him. And so people was against it because when you're running for office, especially as a Democrat, you never challenge an incumbent. I'm like, I don't care. This is my hometown. This is where I come from. None of y'all, everybody else is influence. I'm running because it's time for change in my community, and we need change in my community, and we need positive change. We need people that relate to the actual people, not people that have gone off to school, and because they can see the struggle, they think that they can empathize with those people, never having gone through those same struggles. Same thing I tell anybody in life. If you got anybody preaching to you, I don't care if it's a pastor or anybody else preaching to you, and they've never gone through hardships and overcome it, don't listen to them, because they don't know what it means to go through the struggles and pains of life. They only know what they've read or what they've seen on TV or what they've heard from anybody else. To me, people that can give the best advice are those that have gone through it.
Exactly.
That's just my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah.
So from there, it didn't work out because I challenged an incumbent, and this dude was like a 10-term incumbent. So the first time, it didn't go through well. So I ended up getting more involved because I had did a lot of community service work. So when I was working in corporate America, prior to that, I did a lot of community service work. I was a vice president of a nonprofit in my corporation. So I was doing mentoring the youth. We was cleaning up schoolyards, and I was doing a lot of community service work. And then I did a lot of community service work with the church I was with because I used to sing as in the praise team. So we would go help out like homeless shelters, and we would help out like the women's shelters, the battered women's shelters. Even though as a man you couldn't go in there, but you could still do stuff to like bring them things. You could provide food assistance, like help bring food to the houses and whatnot, and help get them counseling. So I was doing all this stuff. So I continued on to that and started just putting my name out more. So once people really started knowing who I was, that's when I really started this podcast on top of it too. So I started this podcast because as I started talking more to the community, people didn't understand how bills are written. They didn't understand how to read bills. And any of y'all coming from like a church background and you know how to read the Old Testament or the old King James Version, you know how to read it. If you can read any form of law. If you can read King James Bible.
I have the King James Bible and I cannot read it.
If you can read that and understand it, the these, the does, and hims and ha's, you can read any form of law that's out there. So I found that I had a knack for that because I grew up in the church and that's all we had to read. So I started explaining bills to people, and like I said, when I was explaining them, they was like, "Man, why nobody else gave us that before?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "These people have been in office for how many?" I was like, "Y'all keep voting for them." I was like, "Why do you keep voting for them if they're not teaching you stuff?" So I started the podcast because I'm like, okay, well, I'm teaching people on cybersecurity. So my background is IT and security. So I've done networking and security for over 20 something years now. So I was traveling the world teaching about IT security. So I was like, okay, well, if I can teach security to people that don't even speak the same language as me, then I can teach technology to people that don't understand technology. If I can read the old King James version of the Bible and I can actually read bills and understand what they're trying to do in bills and how it's going to impact you and how it's going to impact your future and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, I can do this for people in the community. So when I started doing that, I was streaming at the time because this is now going on to the pandemic. So I'm part of this whole gaming community. I'm playing games. And then while I'm playing games, kids are coming on and kids are going through the same thing as my youngest son. They're dealing with depression. So they're talking to me, not realizing how old I was. I would tell them about how I overcame stuff. So I'm counseling these kids online while playing video games. This is on Twitch. So I was like, okay, let me incorporate all this stuff together into a podcast. And let me just start talking to people, breaking stuff down for them, giving that aha moment. And then when it came to the mental health issues, I had this session called On the Couch. And this On the Couch session was I would have like a specialist come on, a psychiatrist or people that deal with like Reiki and stuff or yoga or whatever to help people with their mindfulness, with mental health issues or questions they might have or things they're battling and they're having to deal with. The psychiatrist would be there as a specialist to help them out and tell them what practice they can do without actually having to sit down and have them on their couch. So give them a high level thing of what they can practice at home.
Right.
And that's how, long story short, that's where I got to where I am today. So now I have the podcast going. I've had my first in-person studio audience show happen like a couple of months ago. So I'm trying to plan for the next one. I had a radio session going before I went to being an in-person because I like seeing people's faces. And I would like the idea of having people want to ask the guest questions as opposed to just them hearing on like the radio. And then outside of that, I started another business to where I'm doing development, videography work, and audio engineering for corporations and schools and stuff. So I have that going on as well too, on top of my day job where I'm still working in IT. So I'm working working R&D, research and development on new 5G technology. So that is a short and a skinny of where I am today. Do I still deal with depression? Absolutely. Absolutely. I still have stuff that I'm still battling right now because to me, when you get to my age in life, I don't know if you feel the same way, Andy. I feel like I should be further ahead. So I still have to kind of bring myself in like, I had to jump over a ton of hurdles to get to where I am. So, things are going to work its way out. They may not work out in the same time frame that you wanted to work out in, but you're still doing better than what you were years ago.
Exactly. I was just having a conversation with my buddy on yesterday. The same guy I mentioned to you about on your podcast, the guy that we go on our morning coffee talks, and we were just talking about maybe like possibility of a new career and a different job. And he was telling me like, don't just do it for the money. And I, don't let money be the reason why you would want to quit your job that you've been doing so good for the past 10 years. And I'm like, no, that's not, well, in a way it is, and in a way it's not. It's just the fact that I look at my savings account. My son is 15. He's got 2 more years of high school. And what do I have to offer? I got 2 cents in my savings account. My son can't go to college with 2 cents.
Yeah.
So it's not, no, I still, like, it's like I've been doing this for so long at this one company and I have 2 cents to show for, when I have other people telling me, hey, come with us, man, look at, you put in 100 and the company puts 5 and, they're trying to get me to, come over. I'm just not the kind of guy to just quit my job. I don't just up and quit, but it's like, again, we go back to the 2 cents. I got 2 cents in my savings because I've been living paycheck to paycheck for a company that I've been doing for 10 years. So to your point, you're right. I feel like I'm not where we should be at 40 years old with only 2 cents in my savings.
Yeah, man. It's for me, and it's like I guess from the outside looking in, I am doing well.
We are. We are.
Yeah, we are. And I just feel like I should be further ahead to a degree. because I have both my boys in school. Like I still pay child support, but I don't pay child support. So what I did with yeah,
I'm done, bro.
But I mean, their mom and I, we have a good relationship now. So I mean, all the stuff that we went through, that's gone as water under the bridge.
Good.
So we like the best of friends right now.
That's good.
So what I did was the money that I was sending up there for child support to make sure they was taken care of, because I would brag on myself. I am a phenomenal father, and I was a phenomenal father, because even though I was paying child support, I was still paying for all the extracurricular activities. So because both of them played soccer. They both was in the one was in advanced orchestra playing violin. The other one, before he played violin, he's playing both was playing the viola. So one transitioned up to the violin, and the other one went from viola to French horn. If y'all don't know how much a French horn costs, go look how much a French horn costs. It costs the same amount as a freaking car.
Damn.
It is the most expensive instrument that any kid can play in school. It's a brass instrument. French horn, I think the thing cost me $12,000.
Damn.
So I'm paying for all that on top of paying child support. So that's why I was like, you can't tell me I wasn't being a great dad. And they did great in it. I mean, he went from playing it in the band at school to he got into the marching band. And so from when they graduated high school and they went into college, I just transitioned from, I'm like, I'm already paying it. So I'm like, just as opposed to going to her account to manage and give it out to them, it now goes into their checking account.
Nice.
So now I give them that money so because I had a belief too that I'm like, I refuse to have my kids be starving college students. I'm not doing that. A lot of parents, and especially in the Black community, we say that they all the time they're gonna have to go through what we went through. I do not believe in generational curses. My kids, the money. I mean, if I'm already used to paying, would I like to have all those $1,000 back in my account? I would, but I'm like, I don't want my kids going through a struggle. So I'm like, you're in college. As long as you're doing great in college, you're getting your grades like you're supposed to, you will continue to get this money. So I went from paying it to her. It's now in their checking account. And then, I still pay for that stuff. I like pay for my oldest son, his food and stuff. So, and I still take care of both of them. So, but I still feel though, I need money for myself too, man. I need money to stack up because I'm getting older.
Yeah. So
I'm like you. I should be building up my savings. Like I should be building up my savings account, but it's like I'm spending more on the kid.
Check this one out. So recently, my wife I had to get rid of Bank of America because Bank of America didn't help me when I got my phone hacked. They felt it was all 100% my fault, so I switched banks, and now I have a credit union with my wife where we can see all four of our accounts, mine, my wife, and the two boys. And so the other day I was talking to her. I was like, "Hey, babe. So you took over the cell phone bills. Thank you so much, but I have to change our gym memberships now to a different debit card. But the thing is that before the gym had my debit card for both memberships. Now I kind of need I need to link up your account to." She was, "I'll just pay for my gym membership, and you'll pay for yours." You know how I celebrated, bro? You want to know how I celebrated the $22.99? Peacock, bro. No commercials.
Yeah.
I went full Peacock, man. That was my celebration, bro.
Yeah, man. And I have all those streaming platforms, but I mean, I feel like, especially I'm sure you do too. We work so hard, and I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to take care of your kid, but man, I work so hard. I need some money for myself too. Right. Not even for my wife. I just need money for myself.
Yeah.
And it's like I spend so much to take care of everybody. I'm like, I should be, especially what I do. I'm like in my field that I'm working in. I look at how much people making them, especially my job right now, how much you're making in my job versus what I'm making. I'm like, no, I should be way further. Because I'm like, this is just crazy. But now I'm kind of like where your friend was saying to you though. I've been doing it for 20 years. What does it mean to change into something else? Which is why I'm kind of focusing on my business, because I enjoy doing that. It's something brand new. I love doing it. I love like creating something and seeing what the end product is and getting it out there. So I'm trying to like monetize off of that. Because I'm taking so those that know about Web3 security, Web3 is a new internet that's coming out down the line. You hear all over the media right now. And if you don't know about it, go learn about it. But I'm learning about that right now. But I'm taking a security class on that. And so at the first part of this security class, the guys, because I'm cool with them, they was like, well, once you come through this class, you should be able to get a job in Web3 security. And they was like, so what do you plan to do? I said, dude, I'm 44 years old. I said, I am not trying to switch a damn job. I was like, I'm learning this because I want to learn it. And I'm like, because I'm a nerd, I want to know how to use it. And if I can adapt it into my business and make it another form of income into my business, I said, but to leave where I'm at right now and go interview with another company, I said, they might even want them because, they practice ageism in corporate America. They may not want to hire me because I'm like, I've been doing security and networking for so long. I'm going to come in asking for a higher dollar amount. And so I'm like, I don't want to go through the struggle of starting all over at a brand new company. Now, if I see somebody offer me something good, I might. And I get the same flexibility, absolutely. But
right.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of struggling in right now, too, is like, do I switch up careers? And I always ask some of my friends that, because I have one of my good friends, my best friend, she's the president of a college. So she's been in education, pretty same as me, her entire career. She's been a elementary school teacher. She went from elementary to teaching in high school, from high school teaching to community college as a professor, from professor to a dean to a vice president, and now she's a president. And so both of us, we at this age, and now she's older than me, like she's in her 50s. So we both looking at this age and stage in our life, and I'm like, I'm kind of getting tired of doing. I love technology, but I'm like, man, it's like I need a refresh because I'm like, you always learning technology. I'm never gonna quit it because I'm excited about what's out there. I'm excited about AI. I'm excited about all this blockchain stuff that's being talked about. But do I want to continue working in that field? I don't know. I'm like, I want something a little different. And so for me, that's what I've been kind of battling lately. On top of wanting to make some more money because I need some money.
Right. I gotta tell my wife, if I can keep just $50 to my name after every paycheck, after every bill gets paid, I'm a happy man, bro.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, like healthcare is kicking my ass.
$800 a month for me.
Yes, yeah, and you higher than me, so I'm at $585 right now for just two people.
What I say in the beginning, someone always has it worse than you.
Yeah. But you got kids though.
Yeah, I'm paying for four.
So fortunately for me, my boys are under my ex-wife, under her insurance. So they have healthcare, which I pay for it too. So they have healthcare under her insurance, what a job that she works at. But yeah, just for me and my wife alone, man, yeah, it's like $585. But I was like, this is not no affordable healthcare. I was like, this is expensive as hell.
Right.
Oh, you talking about $585 a month on top of all your regular bills because mortgages and rents are going up.
Yeah. Like
everything is high. And I'm like, and I make really good money, but between my kids being in college and the house I'm living in and stuff, it's like, and I can't itemize. Believe me, I cannot. I can't itemize. There's nothing to itemize. Like I know a lot of people say, oh, if you start looking at what you have and maybe you could drop down something, I can't drop down anything smaller. It's like I actually need more space because I need more space.
Well, but before we sign off, man, is there anything that you wanna, last words of wisdom to the listeners?
Yeah, man. So I tell people all the time. You always hear me say it. I know you've probably seen other people motivational speaking and stuff. I say take your 3 L's every day. Live for today. Because tomorrow's not promised. Is live, love, laugh. Laugh about the things you have no control over. And then lead with your heart and lead with love. Because I'm like, if you follow those 3 principles, those will be your guiding things to help you out throughout your days. It's not going to be the cure-all for everything, but at least you'll know how to laugh at the right moment. You know how to lead and love with your heart because you're supposed to love everybody. And then you just live for today because tomorrow's not promised. So if you live for today and get a ray of sunshine out of today, you're doing better than what you would be doing yesterday.
Exactly. Amen to that, buddy. Well, thanks again for having me on your podcast a few weeks ago. And you're welcome to come back anytime. Any other stories you have. Like I said, anyone's welcome to come back. And Antonio, like I end every podcast, buddy, thank you for riding with me.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Indie Podcast. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean.